This story is inspired by the web novel The Greatest Estate Developer. The events, voices, and narration you're about to hear are my own adaptation. Welcome back, fellow builders, or welcome for the first time, listeners. If you're enjoying this journey into absolute aristocratic bankruptcy, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments below. How would you handle waking up with an angry night and a mountain of debt? Turn on those notifications, because things are about to get messy. In our last episode, I found myself stuck in the body of Lloyd Frontera, the most hopeless, good-for-nothing noble you could imagine, when, suddenly, just as everything seemed over, a mysterious blue screen appeared. And now, on to episode 2, but seriously, what in the world is RP? I stared at the glowing blue text floating in my vision, entirely bewildered. Was it some sort of experience point system like in those old RPGs I used to play instead of studying for my civil engineering exams? As if hearing my desperate thoughts, the system chimed in my head, a cold mechanical voice explaining that RP stood for relationship points, a literal currency earned, or brutally lost, based entirely on how the characters in this world perceived me. Naturally, I turned my attention to the closest subject, Javier, the stoic, infuriatingly perfect knight standing just a few paces away. I focused on him, waiting for the little blue box to update, expecting maybe a 0 or a slight negative, but no. A massive, glowing -30 hovered right over his immaculate head. -30. I was practically a scumbag in his own bodyguard's eyes. Panic and frustration warred in my chest. How was I supposed to survive if the guy holding the sword hated my guts? So, I tried a tactical approach, putting on my most charming, innocent smile and cutely mentioning just how dashing and incredibly good-looking he was today. Javier didn't even blink. He just gave me a look so utterly devoid of warmth it could freeze a volcano, completely dismissing my compliment before the blue box cruelly flashed again, indicating that Javier's approval rating decreased by 1 point, now totaling -31. I ground my teeth, my grand plan to win him over crumbling before it even started, deciding to aggressively shove that problem to the back of my mind for later, because I had bigger fish to fry, which is my astronomical debt. I marched straight down to the village and into the local pub, practically cornering the burly pub owner with a brilliant, foolproof sales pitch. I was going to write off all his ridiculous construction fees against the property damage from my past drunken benders. But the owner just stared at me, his eyes narrowed in deep, unyielding suspicion. A message box cheerfully popped up to inform me that he was looking at you suspiciously. Disheartened, I realized the bitter truth. Absolutely no one in this forsaken village had a single ounce of trust in me. As I desperately tried to think of another angle, the system chimed again, helpfully noting that the owner was currently using the passive skill, Stonewall Heart. Feeling completely cornered, and realizing my grand real estate empire was going to die before the first brick was laid, I resorted to the only weapon this useless body possessed: the hooligan image. I let my face slacken into the most unhinged, menacing, absolutely degenerate scowl I could muster, leaning in close, my eyes wide and bloodshot, looking exactly like the unpredictable aristocratic menace they all rightfully feared. It worked like a charm, intimidated beyond belief. The poor pub owner frantically scribbled his signature on the contract, and a rush of pure, unadulterated joy hit me. I had my very first sale. Of course, the system immediately popped up a new message, gently reminding me that I was absolute garbage for extorting an innocent man. But I mentally protested, grinning like a madman as I folded the precious contract and slipped it into my shirt pocket. I assured the trembling owner that he absolutely would not regret this decision, totally ignoring the intense, suspicious glare boring into the back of my skull from Javier. Later, standing outside the pub with a heavy shovel in my soft, uncalloused hands, ready to finally start the groundwork, Javier couldn't hold his tongue any longer, coldly reminding me that I had just essentially threatened a man into signing away his rights, and accused me of coming up with entirely new, creative ways to cause trouble. I sighed, leaning on my shovel, and patiently decided to educate this overly righteous knight on the psychological concept of cognitive distortion, explaining that what he was experiencing was simply a prejudice based entirely on the past. Javier immediately protested, his brow furrowing as he argued that it wasn't prejudice, It was empirical experience based on their very real, very terrible interactions with me. Exactly. I interjected smoothly, pointing a finger at him. All in the past. Javier blinked, visibly taken aback by my sudden transformation into a silver-tongued smooth talker, momentarily rendered speechless by my sheer audacity. Seizing the opportunity, I drove the tip of my shovel into the dirt, ignoring the painful protest of my weak muscles, and confidently assured him that by the time I was finished, I would make both the pub owner and his elderly mother smile with genuine happiness. I turned back to the dirt, but not before a mischievous, greedy grin spread across my face, not because I cared about their warm, fuzzy feelings, no, but because their smiles were going to be the absolute best marketing campaign I could ask for. Every painful scrape of the shovel against the hard, unforgiving earth was a down payment on my future empire, sending jolts of agony up my soft, uncalloused aristocratic arms. Sweat began to bead on my forehead almost instantly, stinging my eyes and plastering my hair to my skin, a stark reminder of just how physically pathetic this body truly was. But the pain was nothing compared to the glorious, golden visions dancing behind my eyelids, mountains of glimmering coins, overflowing treasury vaults, and a life of absolute, lazy luxury where I'd never have to lift a single finger ever again. I imagined the stubborn villagers lining up around the block, practically begging me to take their hard-earned cash, their pockets bursting with the exact funds I desperately needed to wipe out the Frontera family's crushing debt. Let Javier cross his muscular arms and glare holes into my back all he wanted. Let the system mock my existence with its floating blue insults. They simply didn't understand the grand vision. They couldn't possibly comprehend the architectural masterpiece I was about to construct right under their highly skeptical noses, turning this miserable, run-down tavern into the ultimate, undeniable proof of my money-making genius. 3 agonizing weeks later, the skeleton of the new tavern was finally halfway done, and my fragile, pampered aristocratic body was entirely broken. I dropped my heavy tools into the dirt, my chest heaving as I panted like a dying fish, my pathetic muscles screaming in a symphony of unbelievable weakness. Standing just a few feet away, Javier was silently observing me, his sharp eyes narrowing in quiet bewilderment as he practically radiated the question. How on earth was the notoriously useless Lloyd Frontera actually honoring a contract, let alone demonstrating an intimate understanding of complex architectural foundations? Completely exhausted but far too stubborn to give up when I could practically smell the future profits, I dragged myself toward a fresh pile of lumber and raised my axe, ready to resume chopping wood. But before the blade could even bite into the timber, a gloved hand firmly stopped my arm. It was Javier, stepping forward with a hesitant sigh, grudgingly asking what exactly he needed to do to help out. I eagerly handed over the instructions, and to my absolute shock, the knight accomplished the grueling task in seconds, slicing through the thick wood with a fluid, ridiculous amount of effortless style. My eyes widened in pure delight. Realizing I had just struck free labor gold, I immediately flashed a greedy smile and eagerly suggested he take over the rest of the heavy lifting. Javier visibly stiffened, his face twisting in deep annoyance as he instantly regretted his moment of mercy, but I smoothly cut off his protests, leaning in to convincingly argue that the only reason he offered to help was that his noble knight's heart longed to see the pub owner and his mother's radiant smiles. And naturally, the absolute fastest way to achieve that noble goal was by doing the heavy lifting together. Defeated by my twisted, undeniable logic, he rolled his eyes and grabbed a shovel, and soon the two of us were working side by side, aggressively digging trenches and laying down the intricate stone foundation of the house. When the final stone was set, and the massive project was officially complete, I threw my aching arms up and celebrated, a wave of genuine, triumphant relief washing over me as all the backbreaking hard work finally paid off. Javier, however, was staring skeptically at a strange, newly carved symbol I had proudly mounted on the front wall. I casually waved a hand, mentioning it was simply my brand new corporate logo. But when his confusion only deepened, I playfully dismissed his questions and sarcastically invited him inside to witness the grand con I had supposedly created for the poor pub owner. We stepped into the newly rebuilt home, And the moment the burly pub owner and his frail mother stepped onto the finished surface, their eyes went wide with absolute shock. The radiant, unbelievable warmth radiating from the hidden ondal flooring was so intensely comforting that they practically collapsed, attempting to lie directly on the smooth, heated surface. They openly wept, gasping that it must be some kind of high-tier magic, and the burly owner grabbed my blistered hands, profusely and tearfully thanking me for giving his mother a warm place to rest her aching bones. Standing in the corner, Javier was frozen in utter surprise, his eyes darting between their genuine, radiant smiles and my smug face. He was witnessing the impossible. I had actually kept my promise. As Javier silently pondered everything that had transpired over the past grueling weeks, the faintest, almost imperceptible smile tugged at the corner of his lips, and a glorious blue message box chimed in my vision. Javier's approval rating has increased by 2 points. Current rating, -29. Before I could even celebrate that monumental, tiny victory, another alert flooded my vision, cheerfully informing me that for actively improving my relationship with a main character, I had just earned a staggering 36 relationship points. Bursting with smug satisfaction, I bumped my shoulder against Javier's, teasingly whispering that I knew exactly what he was thinking, that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't complete aristocratic garbage after all. He immediately straightened up, his face returning to a mask of cool indifference as he flatly denied it, though the slight twitch in his jaw told a much different story. Later that afternoon, I sat outside the tavern, deeply reflecting on the fact that this first project was a total, absolute loss in actual financial profit. However, my grand, overarching scheme was already in motion. This beautiful, heated tavern was simply my ultimate model house, the perfect bait to expand my massive orders. Pulling up a chair and a small wooden desk right in the middle of the bustling street, I shamelessly waited as the curious villagers wandered in and out to enjoy the miracle of the heated floors, launching directly into a rapid-fire, high-pressure sales pitch. Listen up. I barked like a seasoned infomercial host, holding up 2 fingers to the gathering crowd. I have 2 exclusive plans for you today. Plan A, a luxurious annex in your yard. Plan B, a complete floor-to-ceiling remodeling of your current, drafty home. And if you sign right now, I'll give you an unprecedented 10% discount if you get both. I flashed my most winning, supposedly trustworthy smile, but the crowd just stared back with cold, unwavering skepticism. Clearly, most of the villagers still didn't trust me as far as they could throw me, and I gritted my teeth, deeply annoyed that my brilliant marketing strategy was hitting a solid brick wall. But just as I was about to yell at them for passing up the deal of a lifetime, a massive, imposing shadow suddenly fell over my little wooden table, plunging my precious paperwork into darkness. I looked up, the annoying sales pitch instantly dying in my throat, to see my father, Baron Arcos Frontera, towering over me with a deadly serious expression, his booming voice cutting through the silent crowd as he demanded to know exactly what on earth I thought I was doing. If you enjoyed this cinematic plunge into the chaotic world of real estate, debt, and completely unhinged sales tactics, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment with your favorite moment or what you think my father is going to do next, and hit subscribe to join the Shadow Arc Studio so you never miss an episode. Thank you for listening. This story was for you.